Hi, this is Nikki Haverstock, and here's the shirt that my husband gave me because it didn't fit him anymore. I am an author of Cozy Mysteries, and I'm here to talk today about long-term motivation and how you can cultivate it. It's a question that a lot of people have asked me about. How do I stay motivated? I have been writing as the primary sort of focus of my life for 6 years now. I've been published for about 4.5. I'm self-published. I need to double check. I believe it's 14 individual books out and 2 short stories. Some of those are shorter, some of those are novellas, and some of those are a little bit longer than that. And right now I'm having a hard time. We're in quarantine. It's been a long time since I've released a new book. It's been even longer since I released a book in one of my more popular series. And so, it's easy to see the sales and have a hard time writing and feel like, oh, I'm so far behind. So I think this is a great topic. I am coming at this from the angle of someone who wants to be a career author, that you want to write for a living. And that could be true of anyone, books, screenplays, whatever. But I'm coming at it from the point of view of someone who wants to do their living. So the first thing that I recommend, or that I'm going to kind of bring up, and these are of course things that help me, and you might need to tweak them a bit according to your personality. I tried to kind of cover all the topics, but I might not do a very good job. One of them, this is something that my friend Zoe York, who also has a channel on YouTube, talks about a lot, it's a 5-year plan. And this is a rolling 5-year plan. So it's not like when her assistant said, "What year are you in your 5-year plan?" She's like, "I'm always at year 0." Because you're constantly, if a series says better, you're saying, okay, I'm going to do more of that in the future. Series says not do so good, maybe you remove it from your 5-year plan. But one of the things I like about the idea of a 5-year plan is it puts you in the mind frame that this is not going to happen this month. It's not going to happen next month. It might not happen in your next book. When I first started, I really thought that every book could be the one that went through the stratosphere. Now I've kind of swung the pendulum the opposite way, to where it feels like none of the books ever will be the one. But frankly, if I keep gaining readers at the speed I'm going, I'll eventually have a career. I'd like it to be sooner than later, but having observed a lot of businesses, it's not at all unusual to see things come to a tipping point and then things progress very quickly. But the idea of the 5-year plan, for me, helps me to focus on the big picture. And when you're a month behind, or in my case, I'm probably about 2 months behind for this year, it can feel like I'm never going to catch up. But when you put the 2 months into a 5-year plan, if someone said, "Well, I'm sorry, you're not going to have success in 5 years, you're going to have it in 5 years and 2 months," you'd be like, "Oh, okay, I can handle that." And so I like that 5-year plan. And the way she puts it is like, what do you want to have written in 5 years? And that kind of helps you figure out what you're doing. So that's a really good one. Another thing is, if you know your why are you writing, that can be something that you can come back to. It's like a touchstone. So for those of you who don't know, I have a master's degree in kinesiology, and the area of study that I focused in was sports psychology, performance enhancement. And with sports psychology, one of the classes that I took was a class called sports philosophy, which predates sports psychology. And trust me, I'm bringing it back to writing here, which is when in this class, we talked about what motivates people. Where does our motivation to play sport come from? And we did like a deep dive into our childhood. And the idea was, if you knew why you played sports and what it meant to you on a deep philosophical level, that was a motivation that you could bring to help yourself and athletes improve. And the same is true for writing. So why do you write? Is it the way that you're able to connect with people? I have a lot of anxiety. I don't have a lot of control in my life. Sometimes everything just seems so overwhelming, but I can control my books. Since I was a little kid, my mother will tell you that I always wanted to be funny. That was always incredibly important to me. I don't fully know why, but it's something that deeply motivates me. And books are a way that I can be funny and entertain people and have connections with people when maybe it's not always so easy in real life. It is and a lot of people say this one, which is, it is a job that I can do from home. So whether you have a physical disability, you have something like social agoraphobia or social anxiety or something like that, or just your circumstances. There is a huge number of writers, male and female, who started writing because they were at home with their children. And it was a job they could do from home. And so all of those are true for me. When I started writing, I desperately wanted to perform, and I consider writing to be almost a little bit of performance because I get to put on a show in people's heads. At least that's how I relate to it. I lived literally 60 miles from the nearest anything. We had a very small community. There was a limited number of things I could do. And but writing and self-publishing was 100% of my control, and I loved the idea of it. I'm never going to be in a circumstance where I can be in a writer's room or on a movie set, no matter how awesome that seems. And so when there's been times where I've been like, oh, I might as well quit, and I've literally said, and do what? What other job can I do from home that I have any sort of natural talent at, that excites me in any way? And I go, well, I guess I better get back to writing because my options are limited. And sometimes it's as simple as that, which is if that is true for you, that might be a motivation. Is like, well, what else? And I know that sounds a little defeatist, like you should love writing for writing. But sometimes you need a little something different. And it's okay if in a low moment you say, well, what else would I do? Whatever gets you to keep going. So, but identifying your why, and you might spend some time asking yourself that question, journaling, and why do I want to write? What does it mean to me? And then those are things, some lodestones that you can come back to, and you can give you comfort when you're feeling unmotivated. Another thing I did, and I kind of arranged the camera this way so you could see my 2 vision boards. So this is my family one, and it's got stuff about the family and all that. But this one, I tried to reframe the picture so you could see it a little clearer, and you could not. But I made this. I'm not a big woo-woo type of person. I'm a mediocre woo-woo person, but I really, really recommend this. So I did mine on Pinterest. I will link the board that I made if you are interested, but I decided to give it a try one year. It was a year ago Christmas for 2019, and I started, and I do recommend this. This has been incredibly comforting to me. This is my computer. I'm right-handed, and so I look at this a lot. And these are things that I picked out because they're meaningful to me, and so it's like a message from me to me when I need it the most, if that makes sense. So I highly recommend Pinterest because their recommendation algorithm is excellent. So once you start pinning stuff to your board, they make really good suggestions. So I'm religious, so I started out with some verses that meant a lot to me. They were promises from God. And so I felt like that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with promises from God. So I pinned a bunch of verses. And if you actually look at the board, if you start at the bottom up, that's the order I did it in. So I started with some verses. Nothing can stop God's plan for your life. Isaiah 14:27. Cast all your cares on him because he cares for you. 1 Peter 1:7. So I picked a couple of verses. I actually picked Ecclesiastes, which was a verse that you probably know it from the bird song. There's a time for everything, a time to mourn, a time to live, a time to, all of that. So that was an inspiration for one of my books. So I started with that, and then I picked writers that I really, really respect. So I love Amy Poehler and I love Tina Fey. I've read their books multiple times. For me, this is like, those are my big sister writers. So I did some searches, and so I have quotes from them. It will never be perfect, but perfect is overrated and perfect is boring, from Tina Fey. Look, I'm getting emotional just reading it. And so I went through and I picked a bunch. I did a search for Tina Fey quote, and I have a bunch on here. And then I have some from Steve Martin. Be so good they can't ignore you. You know what? Bitches get stuff done, from Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, from a sketch that they did. Thankfully, perseverance is a great substitute for talent, by Steve Martin, who's another, his book Born Standing Up is really important to me. And so I started going to creators, writers, mostly comedy writers. And I have Mindy Kaling. I have Stephen King on here somewhere. I have Dorothy Parker. I hate writing, but I love having written. So anyway, you only fail if you stop writing, Ray Bradbury. So once I had a good portion, every day Pinterest will send you an email with a list of pins. And so they was really great because they kind of know what, if you pin this, you're likely to pin that. So every day I would get an email. Do or do not. There is no try. Yoda. And so every day I would get a pin, and I added them. And then you can Google printing out a Pinterest page. You go to the page. They have a whole thing on how to do it. I will tell you, if you get too many pins on there, it's hard to get all of them printed out because it only caches so many at a time. But anyway, so I started with that, and I went through, I put on here a mic for my audiobooks, because I wanted to start recording audiobooks. I've since recorded 4 of them. I have archery on here, which is, actually, you can't see it. There's a Lucy Liu, and I was actually at that photo shoot, and I think she's holding my bow. But I was a technical advisor for that. So I put things that are important. I have a bunch of pictures of Meghan Markle here because she's the inspiration. Her and Rashida Jones are an inspiration for a series I was developing. So I went and I put Dragons, which was one of the books, actually did really well last year. Dragons are a mage's best friend. So I put some images up of projects that I was working at. And then every day I could see it. And I have a picture of a little desk in a cute little area, which was, I hadn't really made this office at the time, I don't think. I think I made it about a month later. Is that right? So anyway, so I did that. I really do recommend it because the idea is that when I sit here and I get discouraged and I think I should just quit, I see success is walking from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm, Winston Churchill. And that's an important quote to me, and I picked it out, and it's there for me when I need it. So I do there's one here, Shonda Rhimes. I'm not lucky. You know what I am? I'm smart, I'm talented, take advantage of opportunities that come my way, and I work really, really hard. Don't call me lucky, call me a BA badass. So anyway, by Shonda Rhimes. So I do recommend that. That works for me. I like to have the quotes. I like to listen to people who are successful tell me things that I know are true when I doubt myself. So, so that is something to consider. Another thing to consider right here is I have a bookshelf, and I've mentioned this, I mentioned both of these things in another video, but I put bookshelves, childhood favorite books. Remind me that I've been a reader forever. I've been training for this job since I was young, and likely you've been training for writing since you were young. I put a bunch of books here from my childhood. I put books here that I read that were my grandmother's. That she bought in 1905, and she has her signature inside. This runs in my family. Doesn't really matter, but that doesn't really matter, but at the same time, it makes me feel like I'm destined for this. And that's a lot of my motivation comes from feeling like this is a smart decision. I have books that I've read down here on craft. I've studied. I've done this. I've been reading since I was a child. I've been studying since I decided to make this decision. I've made good choices. I have books in here. And I just have a random assortment of things that I, like one book from a series, which probably drives you crazy if you have all your books arranged, but I brought my support team here. So when I sit at this desk, this is a tiny little corner desk where I do everything on my computer. This is a dedicated spot. It's in the corner of a guest room. But when I sit here, I feel like an author. And that can be really encouraging to you. If you want to be an author and have it be your career, make yourself a special spot. You might not even need to use it. This is where I get into like, you might not need a special spot. I wrote for a long time on the kitchen table. And then when I was hugely pregnant, I had a recliner because it was the only way I could get the computer close enough to my belly without it hurting. But the idea was, for me, having a special spot helps me feel like an author, which helps me feel more motivated, which helps me write. And so for you, this was my birthday gift a couple years ago, this little table that fit in here. It's a dedicated spot, and I can have my important stuff here. You might not need that, but if you do need it, do it. Maybe for you, it's a special fancy pen and a journal that you write in. Maybe it's your dedicated hour every day from 5 to 6. Whatever it is, and I'm telling you, I have done it where I put on special earrings. They were my writing earrings. I've had it where I put on a special perfume. I had a special cup. I have a special tea. This is all mental, but if it helps you to feel like an author, go for it. A special shirt. You know, I have writing shirts. Your special pants. I'm just saying, any of that stuff that helps. Another thing that helps me a lot is to know that this is normal. So it is very normal to feel like, what am I doing? Why am I wasting my time? Why am I wasting my effort? It is normal for books to be really, really hard. And a lot of times I think a lot of people take that as some sign that they're not meant to be a writer. Like, if they were meant to be a writer, it would always be easy. And that is not, I mean, maybe even me saying that out loud makes you realize, like, oh, that's a dumb thing to believe. But it's normal. Everyone I know, all the writers I know who have spoken of this, maybe there's some writers who have spoken, who haven't said this, but, you know, they have a part of a book that they always struggle with. Beginnings, ends, middles. For me, it's more middles. It gets harder and harder and harder up to about 70%. The beginning's easy, and then it gets harder about 70%. And then at some point, I've got all the pieces in my head that I need, and it's a race to the finish. But I've had books that have been hard the whole way through. I've had a book that was mostly easy, other than the self-doubt, because it was in a new genre. All of those are normal. It's normal to, I have put this Dorothy Parker quote right here where she says, I hate writing, but I love having written, because a lot of times I hate writing. And it's like, why would I be an author if I hate writing? Because I love having written. I don't know there's any feeling better than when I conquer that page. So that's normal. And so sometimes just knowing that that what you're feeling is common is all you need. So there's that. And then lastly, and this is going to kind of vary, I chatted with a friend, I chatted with my friend Zoe York, who has a channel, right before I did this video to say, do you think encouragement and motivation are the same thing? Because to me, they feel really tied. When I feel encouraged, I feel motivated. And she says, well, you mean like when other people encourage you? She's like, because that's not really me, but that's my sister. And I was like, well, that does kind of help me, but only rarely. So one of the things that I said just in my last video was that I think my husband's brilliant. I think he's got incredible judgment. He is so smart, and he really believes in me. So when I doubt myself, I can borrow encouragement from him because he believes in me, and he's right a lot. And so when I feel discouraged, that is something that can encourage me. And I was telling Zoe, I was saying, encouragement from friends or people I know or even strangers only help me in two cases. They have to have not in two cases, there's two qualifications they need to have. One, they need to know me and my books and my business well enough to actually make an assertion. And two, I need to respect and trust their ability and knowledge enough to where I believe them. So I have a fan who, he reads cozies, which, first of all, the fact that he is kind of unusual, but he probably reads 200 to 300, probably closer to 300 a year. I would say 300, maybe even pushing it on 400. It's his main hobby. He's divorced. He works the swing shift or the night shift or something like that. And then the only thing he does is read. And so he reads, and his primary genre is cozy mysteries, which is what I write. And he considers me to be one of his favorite authors. He's got a list of about 20 authors, but since he reads 400 books a year, he's one of my ARC readers. And the fact that he thinks so highly of me and he reads so many cozies is an encouragement to me, because he knows the genre. He probably knows the genre better than anyone. If you were to say what is being released right now, he knows it. And so that's an encouragement. My friend Zoe York, who has a channel, which I've now mentioned for the third time, she is brilliant, she's smart, she's financially successful. She knows probably as much about my business as anybody does, because we've just been in a group together for all these years. And so when she says something, I believe her. When she has some words of encouragement, same with my friend Zara Keen, who does not have a channel, but is brilliant and awesome. And there's a small group of us and we all talk. And those are the ones who probably know my business the best. But when they encourage me, it means a lot because I know that they're smart, amazing individuals and they know what they're saying. I have Becca Syme, who I've mentioned before, as a coach. When she encourages me, I know that she's worked with thousands and thousands of authors. She's read my book. You know what I mean? So I'm not trying to brag, although they kind of came out. But what I mean is those are the types of people that I find encouragement from. Now, yours may be different. You may find every positive review to be all you need to keep going. It's always dangerous to have too much of your motivation come from external sources. And I used to be, as a sports psych person, really against external motivation. But as I've gained more nuance and more experience, I think it's a dangerous weapon, like fire is dangerous, but it is also an incredibly useful tool. So I think you always want to be really careful with it, but reading a good review, getting encouragement from someone, if that helps you get over a little hump so that you can then focus on your internal motivation, your whys, your 5-year plan, your goal of being a career author, then I think it's okay to kind of use that a little bit. So that is how I stay motivated long term. I keep writing. I am very much up and down, up and down, up and down over the course of a week. But over a course of the year, I've seen a lot of people come and go. They're on fire, they burn out, they leave. I've even seen people come and be really successful with their first book and never get to their second book. So all I can say is that I'm still here, I'm still pushing on, and I'm still experiencing growth in both my writing and on the financial side. So I hope this is useful for some of you. And if you have any questions, of course, you can hit me up in the comments and you can like and subscribe to see more content in the future. Thanks so much.